speakers. I am pleased to present this webinar, Restorative Justice, Reclaiming the Klamath River for Indigenous Peoples. It is a remarkable feat of organizing and direct action that has happened. It's the largest opening of a river, taking down the dams on the Klamath River in the United States and possibly the world. I'm also Puhlik-lah, or Yurok, and I'm Karuk Indian. My tribes have lived along the Klamath River here in Northern California, what is called Northwestern California, since the beginning of time. We are earth healing and earth renewing people. We have elaborate ceremonies for this. Every year we do them, jump dance and white deerskin dance. Our people, we are put here for no other reason other than do these ceremonies to heal and renew the earth. And throughout time and throughout history, we've done a pretty good job of it. We've maintained adequate sustainability within the ecosystem. The river, for example, has been always free flowing and running, and plenty of salmon, plenty of steelhead, and plenty of lamprey eels. We are good at it. We are good at healing the spirit of Mother Earth. And throughout the history of time, this near time, before time began, if you will, we have followed our traditions and customs and lived a peaceful and harmonious life in our homelands for tens and thousands of years, since that Nathikan time. I'm also president of the 7th Generation Fund for Indigenous Peoples, the oldest Native American public foundation in U.S. history and perhaps world. We have been assisting Native nations rebuild sustainable, healthy, and culturally vibrant communities for over 46 years. I've served in this capacity or with the organization for 35 years. 35 years. I've seen the ups and downs of philanthropy, mostly the down part. And recently we've enjoyed a little bit of the up. 7th Generation Fund is dedicated to the preservation of ceremonies, cultures, and philosophies, and the uniqueness of Native peoples and Native nations. We are founded upon the philosophical principles widely held by Indigenous peoples of the Americas and possibly beyond, in that each deliberation, each thought, that we consider the impact of our actions on the 7th generation to come. The 7th Generation Fund is dedicated to this principle. You know, this principle, this precept it teaches us how to be good ancestors, and it's a very good principle to have. It's also germane for this topic today. You know, restorative justice, reclaiming the Klamath River for Indigenous peoples, and we would like to first of all thank our co-sponsors for bringing you this exciting webinar and of dam removal. And we'd like to thank the G20 Interfaith Forum, the International Academy for Multicultural Cooperation, the 7th Generation Fund for Indigenous Peoples, and the United Religious Initiative, all of which are fantastic groups and bring you this initiative really well. Our panelists today are Annelia Hillman and Frankie Myers, and we will present some discussion. Both have been key players in the Klamath River Justice Coalition and largely instrumental for the removal of the dams through direct action, through protests, through their involvement. And again, this is the largest dam removal project in the United States history. It's huge. It's big. It's big. It involves the removal of 4 major dams in Northern California and Southern Oregon. The last which would be removed is the dam called Iron Gate Dam, which is near Hornbrook, California, and it's an earth dam. The Copco 1 and 2, which are close to the Oregon and California border, both of those dams are huge dams. The Copco 1 is 132 feet high, and it's all cement. And the last dam is the J.C. Boyle Dam, and it's named after the engineer who designed the dams that we have been taking down. It brings some freedom to the river, and keep in mind that we're talking about 400 miles of habitat for birds, salmon, steelhead, and we're talking huge amounts of dam removal will be produced. You know, the tribes are celebrating. You know, the impacts have been felt throughout Indian country, and we're talking about here Yurok, Karuk, Shasta. We're talking about tribes in Oregon, Modoc, and other tribes that occupy the lands. Salmon is significant to the Yurok people, and today we're talking to Yurok people about the dams, and they're significant in a cultural way. It provides food for ceremonies, provides food for subsistence, and for feeding families during cold winter months. It is culturally significant, and it's spiritually significant to the people. And I think Frankie will talk a little bit about it, but both of the guests will talk about it a little more. You know, I think it's multi beneficial. You know, the bird population. For one, there was at one point about 80% of the Pacific Flyway was occupied by birds of all species. And that was reduced to 1% because of the dam removal, but also to all wildlife that depends on the salmon, the bears, the forest. Everything that is alive close to the river depends on the river and the salmon for sustenance. There's about 500 to 1 million species of fish and wildlife that are dependent upon the river. And ecologically, I mentioned 400 miles of habitat is being restored, being there. There has been attempted genocide, you know, of our people and of the species by these dams. So the removal has been significant, has been very significant to the people of Yurok. And before I get into talking too much, let me turn to the panelists for their comments. We have with us Annelia Hillman and Frankie Myers. And Annelia, let's start with you. Annelia is an artist, by the way. She's an activist. She is a language teacher, and she currently works for the food sovereignty program of the Yurok tribe. So, Annelia, do you want to have any comments?
Yes, Multicultural, thank you. Ayukwi, Multicultural, Kemakunuma, thank you for having us here today. Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this moment that we're in. It's a very special, beautiful moment in this like journey of healing for the Klamath River and its peoples. As Chris mentioned, yeah, we've just seen 4 dams removed on our river, and it's taken a long it was a long journey to get here. You know, the last 20 years or more, our river, you know, has been in peril. Our fish, our like all of the life that depends on our river has been you know, compromised. And so this last year, you know, it only took a year for these dams to come out. It's just amazing, this whole process of how long it took just to negotiate, and then the amount of time it took to actually take them down is absurd, really. But it's such, as I was saying, it's such a beautiful time. We're on this path of healing. It's incredible, the things that are happening here in our watershed, in our rivers. You know, we got to watch the process of the dam removal. We've been up to the dam sites and watching the whole thing happen and unfold, and just you know, feeling the river, feeling the happiness that it's projecting. You know, we go up where the dams were, where there weren't once were reservoirs. You know, this spring they were just covered in flowers and our native plants that were reseeded by our tribal people. Just in full bloom, just beautiful. We're currently watching the salmon spawn up above where the dams were. Like it didn't even take a year. Like they're there. They knew exactly where to go. Um, you know, we're seeing you know, our rocks in the river, you know, the parasites, they're being scoured away. You can just feel the energy along the river, I guess, not only from the water and from the species around it, but also the people, you know, the people feel good. We Yeah, it's like this victory, you know, we haven't had very many victories in this time of colonization. Like we've seen a lot of terrible things. We've been through a lot of trauma here along the river. And this here is this moment of reclamation, as we're talking about. And it's not just the dam removal that we're seeing. We're also seeing restoration of our lands along the river. So there's this whole movement of cultural burning and tending our traditional gathering places, tending our plants, tending our all the things that make our cultural life possible. We're able to take care of those things again. And it's not just one tribe or one peoples. It's like all the people along the river working together. It's not just the Yurok people doing the cultural burning. The Karuks are doing it. The Hupas, you know, we are all working together on the same wavelength of healing our river and healing our peoples and healing our way of life and bringing these practices back. It's just like I said, it's just this beautiful moment, you know, in terms of food sovereignty. We're reclaiming, you know, our gathering places, as I said, like burning them, but also using them, gaining access to these places. Um, we're reopening prairies for our elk and our deer to thrive again. So it's not just you know, one thing that we're focused on, not just our salmon, but all the things that are related and all the things that are affected by the health of our river. So we're able to again take care of these things and practice and access lands. And we're working together, and in the upper basin also, you know, we're all, you know, like I said, working on some of the same things as food sovereignty, reclaiming our traditional foods, and understanding how, you know, that relates to the health of our river. So this whole dam removal process has been a learning process also, as far as bringing back or reclaiming those things that we've lost along the way. You know, we've gone through so much. We've lost so many of our, sacred sites and prayers and ceremonies and these types of things. So these are steps that we're taking to be able to become whole again and become who we are supposed to be as people of this river, like reclaiming our purpose that we were created for, and that's to be part of this river, this ecosystem here. And it's 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 so beautiful. However, there are a lot of things that we still have to do. This is just really, as long as this part, the dam removal part, has taken, there's so much more work to do. This is just the beginning. And but it's really enlightening to see our river free and flowing. It's kind of this moment of allowing our minds to be free and flowing again, knowing the possibilities of what we can do when we work together and work hard and pray and reclaim these things. The our cultural and our spiritual beliefs is what makes us powerful on this earth. And it's what makes the earth powerful when we can practice these things. And so, like I was saying, there's still a lot of work to do. Our water is still threatened. Like the dam removal, like I said, is just a step. We're still facing groundwater extraction. And that's a really scary thing, especially when we're looking at our wetlands in the upper basin, like the the industrial farming that's happening in our upper basin is draining our water out. And so those are some of the things that are like number one things we need to address, because we can take the dams out and help the water quality, but if we don't protect our water table, then we've done all of this for nothing. So we really need to focus on making sure that we, I guess, stop the industrial farming that's happening in our watershed and in our basin. It needs to end. There needs to be different practices. There's different ways of doing things, and we're modeling that with the things that we're doing with our food sovereignty programs, showing that we can do things on a smaller scale. We can have food systems that make sense and you know actually help take care of our land and give back, like this idea of reciprocity. I guess I'm not quite finding the right word for that, but um we are modeling how to create a healthy system on this river. Um, the other threat that we're still looking at within our tribal lands and along the river is, the logging that's still taking place. We see it every day whenever I drive over the hill from upriver to the coast. They're still taking out the redwood forest, and that's a critical, um, I guess, piece that needs to be addressed as well. Um, you know, Again, it comes down to land management and how we're taking care of the land and what we're allowing to happen within our watershed. And so there's a lot of steps we still need to take. And I'm just really excited about what's happening. I'm really happy to see people working together, and we're also facing another crisis on our hands with the wind power energy. I know it's a controversial subject, especially like what is the right thing to do? How do we move forward? how do we take care of our people. It's all economics and those types of things, but we really need to focus on what's most important, and that's what's sacred to us. And when we're talking about threatening our ocean life, um, threatening our spiritual viewshed, threatening, again, our river species, then we need to look deeper into it and stop these types of things. So um, we're gonna just keep plugging away here, and I thank you for your time.
There's a question and answer period. So if you have any questions, please post them, and we'll get to them as we proceed through the process here. But I think Annelia raises some good subjects. I think as we come back, one question I have is blue-green algae and its impact on, and also what's happening outside. The precedent set here will generate other interest through tribal governments, through and what's in store there. Before we get to that, I'd like to turn to Frankie Myers to give a rendition. Frankie is the vice chairman of the Yurok tribe and has been involved in the Klamath River Justice Coalition. Well, both of them have been involved in the Klamath River Justice Coalition. And a must-see movie is Guardians of the River, and it's an American River creation. And both of them are fantastic. So Frankie, can you add some comments?
Yeah, absolutely. Ayukwi Naknau, Frankie Myers, Manager Machok, Shragon Kinnegok. As Chris said, I'm currently the vice chairman for the Yurok tribe for at least another 30 days here. Thank you so much, Chris, for inviting me in to have this discussion. Always love to hear Annelia talk about experiences on the river. And before I get into what I wanted to say, I think it feels like the river is vibrating, right? We talk about these like wavelengths, and it feels like our communities and our river is literally vibrating right now. And it's an amazing experience there. Just got off the phone with some of our folks who are doing the monitoring in the upper basin. There's literally thousands of salmon spawning above the dams now, where the dams used to be. And it kind of just like hit me this morning, how long we fought, and to really sit and hear a report of thousands of salmon are now past where the dams were. They're spawning. They knew exactly what they were doing. And it just fills your heart with hope, gratitude to be in this place. One of the things that I really think back on, when we've been doing a lot of thinking about how we got here, now that we're here in the last 20-25 years of the Undam the Klamath campaign, working with the Klamath Justice Coalition and all the tribes. And every tribe has a different version of this story, and we have one. I have one in my family, and it speaks to this connection that we as humans have to the world around us, and Yurok specifically to this connection that we have with salmon. And the story is told in my family from the perspective of my great aunt Queen, who was the matriarch of our family for many years, and she spoke about this vision that she had, this dream that she had, and it spoke to this idea that if there ever comes a time when there's no more salmon in the river, that there'll be no more need for Yurok people here in this place. And in 2002, we had and seen the largest fish kill in U.S. history at the time. Over 75,000 up to 150,000 of our salmon died along the banks of the Klamath River. And people like Annelia and myself and cultural practitioners and folks who depended on the river, it was really a time knowing these stories that were told about this connection that we had to the salmon. And it felt like we were in this place where we could see the end of our existence. as Yurok people, this way of life that we've had, as you said, Chris, since time immemorial, that we've been doing for generations and generations. It became to really settle in that if we don't do something, that our way of life, we could see it go into extinction. And I think it was this catalyst for our people, our regular Indian people, seeing the potential end of our way of life really catapulted us as Yurok, Karuk, Hupa people to come together, right? And it was this time during the early 2000s, coming out of the 90s. I know folks aren't too familiar with the Klamath Basin here, but and you might be shocked to hear that tribes always didn't get along. We had some internal conflicts between our tribal governments that we were going through, right? And we put it aside. There was a greater calling for all of our people that if we didn't do something to change the world that we were looking at, our way of life was going to go away. And it really was this groundswell of regular tribal people who were on the river, who were seeing what was happening, coming together, putting our individual issues aside, putting our governmental issues aside, and started working to build not only capacity, but a movement to make a difference. And when we looked at what was really causing this catastrophe in our fish populations, it was the Klamath River dams. And as Annelia said, it wasn't the only issue, right? We have a myriad of problems caused by colonization, overlogging, deforestation, overforestation, the oppression of our traditional fire practices. The list was a mile long of the issues that we're facing that we would need to work on in order to restore balance back to the basin. But at the top of the list, if you don't do this, whatever else you work on, you're not going to bring it. And it was dam removal. We had to reconnect our basin. For over 150 years, our basin was bisected. It was cut in half between the lower basin and the upper basin. And unless we solved that problem, there was very little hope that whatever else we did would really make the impact that we needed. And it really was this idea based on a very simple piece of traditional ecological knowledge, is that you manage holistically. You can't manage holistically if your basin's cut in half, right? I mean, it was really like, hey, this is ABCs here. You can't manage holistically if your basin is split into two halves. The first thing you have to do is reconnect the basin completely. You need a free-flowing river. You need a basin that's connected from the upper basin to the lower basin. And that set out this 20-year battle of fighting against Pacificor, against Scottish Power, against the US government, against the states, against ag folks, and really building an amazing coalition of people who may not have understood the river like we did, or had that same connection like we were, or were facing the same crisis that we were, but understood that these salmon are amazing and our ecosystems are worth fighting for, and really gathered this movement to undam these pieces of a river that needed to be restored. It absolutely was an effort that was led by everyday, regular tribal superheroes, right? People who would get up at 2:00 in the morning and load on a bus and drive 6 hours to Sacramento or Portland or Omaha or wherever we were called. It was our people who showed up. And it was this amazing thing. And I really want to highlight this because I think it's really critical when you look at the Undam the Klamath campaign, where it started at the heart of our people and where we ended up and how it moved forward. It was a movement that started with a groundswell of regular, everyday people, of tribal people pushing from this idea that's based on our very, very core values, our world renewal ceremonies, things that we grew up with, this revitalization of our world renewal ceremonies, this revitalization of our language and our ceremonies, was the foundation that really drove this movement. And folks like Annelia and myself, who were raised in these ceremonies, and folks like Mr. Peters here, who helped bring these ceremonies back, they all added to what ended up being this very successful dam removal campaign. But it started from our place of spirituality and our place of connection to the world around us. And as we developed it and we added to it, it never left. It never went anywhere. It was always the driving force through the entire campaign. And from start to finish, it was always driven by the people who depended on it, the people on the river. We had different councils, we did have different chairmen, we had different governors. We had Arnold Schwarzenegger for a while pushing this along. We had different presidents. We pushed through the Trump administration. We had all these different pieces that helped move it forward. But what would through line was the tribal people, the activists in the community who absolutely at no point in time ever took no for an answer. And there was dark days, right? There was times when dam removal wasn't certain, and it was more than likely not going to happen, that it would happen. But it was the belief and the faith in our communities that kept driving our leaders forward, that kept driving it home, right? That we were not going to stop until we reconnected the space. We weren't going to take no for an answer, that there was only one outcome that we were going to be satisfied with. And we didn't stop, and we didn't stop, and we didn't stop, and we didn't stop. And I tell people, I think we became phenomenal at failure, right? I mean, every way this couldn't happen, we tried it, right? We have tried every single possible way to do this, and we failed at all of them until we found the path, right? The one way that would work. And that's how we got here today. And I know there's all kinds of credit getting thrown around about what happened and who did it, but nothing but honor and respect to the tribal people who really did make it happen, who wouldn't give up, who sacrificed family time, who sacrificed the living wage, who went out there day in and day out to push and make sure this happened, and to continue to build and push the coalition forward. So those were my words that I wanted to share with you all about my experience here on Dam with Klamath campaign, and the celebration of a historic, largest dam removal in U.S. history. When you put this together with the Trinity River Restoration Program, it's the single largest salmon restoration project in the world. By the time we're done with this, we'll have spent over $1 billion based on a simple, traditional, ecological knowledge point of managing a system holistically.
Good. Well, thank you, Frankie. That's fantastic. Can you talk about a little bit before we leave? What is PacifiCorp, and what is the role of Berkshire Hathaway?
So PacifiCorp is the company that owns and manages the four dams on the Klamath River. Berkshire Hathaway, the largest conglomerate in the world, is the company that owns PacifiCorp. So PacifiCorp is like the folks out in the ground managing the dams. Berkshire Hathaway is the huge corporate conglomerate that owns PacifiCorp, or that owned these dams.
Yeah, and who is Hathaway? That's
Warren Buffett. You might have heard of him. Warren Buffett is the man who makes the decisions for Berkshire Hathaway. And he definitely knows about this campaign. And actually, not to give too much credit to corporations, which I won't do, but I will say was a key component into making this happen. And I think it was the movement from the people that forced his hand for him to ultimately say, okay, this no longer is profitable to our company. We need to get rid of these dams, and made it happen.
Good. Thank you. Hey, Annelia, can you explain a little bit about what blue-green algae was threatening and what they were doing?
Yeah, I mean the blue-green algae was really a result of the dams and the poor water quality. I mean, the dams created this like cesspool in these reservoirs that grew this blue-green algae, and it is toxic. You know, there was dogs dying, you know, people were getting rashes. It's this very toxic substance that we all had to deal with for so many years. And so yeah, just creating better water quality and having a free flowing river is going to mitigate that blue green algae bloom. So yeah, it's like the heat, the temperature, and you know, the I guess the stillness of the water is what causes those blooms.
Well, the river is free and flowing from headwaters to the mouth, to the lips, as we refer to it. And Frankie, can you talk about the hatcheries that are located on the Klamath River now? And can we ever get rid of all of the hatcheries?
Absolutely. Absolutely, that's the plan. It was actually baked into the dam removal restoration plan, post dam removal. You know, we had to make sure that we had a backup plan, a mitigation plan, and really satisfy some folks who didn't understand the salmon like we did. They were very, very concerned post dam removal that we would need to have a hard push to reintroduce salmon back into the basin. There was a hatchery at Iron Gate that was supposed to be a mitigation hatchery for the salmon that were no longer spawning above the dams. That hatchery was taken out. It was moved to a tributary that was located where the reservoirs are. That hatchery has an 8-year lifespan, so it's funded for 8 years, really to make our partners feel a little more easy about the success of dam removal, make sure that there was a backup plan just in case anything happened. But honestly, Chris, from what we've seen from this year and the thousands of salmon now spawning above the dam, I think it was well thought out to not plan that hatchery into perpetuity, to make sure that it has an end of life to it. And that's 100% the plan now. Make sure that we continue along the plan, not harm our salmon. We all understand the devastating effects that hatcheries have long term. We know what we've fought for is natural spawning salmon to feed an ecosystem. So it's part of the fight. It's not guaranteed. I think the other lesson learned of the Undam the Klamath campaign is never take your eye off the ball. You have to be vigilant. You have to continue to participate from start to finish. And this is one of those issues that we'll need to continue to be vigilant, watching and ensuring that when it's appropriate and when the time's right soon, that hatchery come out and be utilized for other purposes.
Yes, good. Hey, Annelia, can you talk about the importance of the fish run, the salmon run?
The actual running, not the fish running up, but yeah, we started or a couple young ladies started this fish run back in, yeah, was it 03, right after the 2000 kill. And it really brought the people together. It was about educating our communities. It was about it really kind of brought people together on this same plane, and this idea of running the route of the salmon. You know, again, we don't have this first salmon ceremony anymore, and it used to be a time when you'd send a message up the river that the salmon are coming, and so this I mean, it wasn't the original intention of the run for that to be what it is, but it really, as we've over the years, it has really felt like that, like this like, I don't know, what's the word? It's like we're the salmon, and we're heading up there, and like we took our prayers with us on this run, and it's really connecting our communities, connecting the tribal people and to the salmon, and to their plight, and to, you know, their their suffering that they go through on their journey up the river. And so, yeah, it's just been this really beautiful metaphorical thing that we've come to do along the river, and it's still, yeah, it strengthens our people and strengthens our connection with each other.
And
Yeah.
it's super fun.
And
It's it's a long run. Can you talk about the windmills a little more? I think there is some questions coming through about the windmills, and I'm curious what impacts will they have. We know there is some noise happening with the windmills that are well, causing the whales to not come in, and will have an impact on the salmon. But can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing to think about with the offshore winds is what we've learned from this whole dam removal process. I mean, they put these hydroelectric dams in thinking, oh, this is going to be green energy. We're going to produce all this power without thinking about the long-term impacts that we don't even know about, how have these been tested? We don't always know the long-term impacts. Like when it comes to, money and greed and corporate and capitalism, like it's all about money, right? And that's like the first sign. We don't think about the long-term effects of what we're doing in the moment. And so I think that's the greatest danger, is the unknown. But we've already learned our lessons, right? We've already learned that we do these things without considering the impact on our environment. And yeah, there's rumors that, and I can't fact check right now, but there's rumors that, yeah, they disrupt, different fish migrations, whale migrations. I've heard like their brains are exploding, all these different things. I don't know the facts about that, but I do know that if we're putting this immense of a project in our ocean waters, it's going to affect the life, and it's going to have some kind of effect. And we need to do the research, and we need to know. And when we're talking about, yeah, none of this power that these offshore winds are bringing are going to our local communities. Like our communities are only going to feel the impacts, the negative impacts of these. All the power is going to the Central Valley to, to generate power for corporate and industrial agriculture. Like that's what's happening in California, and that's what we need to see an end to, and it's about reducing our use of energy. We need to think on smaller scales. We have to stop this capitalist systems that are destroying our land, and the windmills are just part of that.
Now, Frankie, I know the tribe has taken some positions against the windmills. Can you
Absolutely. No, it's from a community activist standpoint, it's extremely frustrating, Chris, to have fought to remove 4 power generating facilities for 20 years and to have them be removed this year. And at the same exact time, we turn around and are going to have 1,000 more put in on our ocean. It's mind-boggling what is happening here in our waters on the Pacific coast here, and the fact that we don't know all of the negative impacts. As like Annelia said, when we originally started building dams, they were green power, they were going to have no effects, and we didn't see a lot of the negative effects until much later. Then we saw the devastating impacts. What we had to fight to remove these dams, knowing the corporate America we live in, looking at the playbook for the installation of these power generating facilities. You have foreign national companies coming in, leasing our unceded territories to build power generating facilities that are going to supply Central and Southern California. What is most frustrating, Chris, when you look at the the graphs for what this power generation is going to supply, look at the increased demand in California for power, it is simply going to offset the growth, which is infuriating to think the potential sacrifice that we're going to make in our ocean, in our rivers, and our waters is to simply offset the demand that's going to continue. The discussion around reduction, the discussion around limiting the amount of power we're taking has to be at the forefront of this conversation. Simply making it quote unquote better isn't the answer. And I don't know how many times as a country we have to learn this lesson, but it seems like we're heading down this path again, and we're calling it renewable as if that's simply all you need to do nowadays is call it renewable and it has no effects. But we're heading down the same path that we did during the gold rush. We're heading down the same path that we did during the extraction of our timber. We're heading down the same path that led us to 4 dams on the Klamath River killing our fish. And yet we head down this path again with the exact same playbook that every extractive industry has done before. And because we call it renewable now, we're supposed to get on board. There is no options for tribal leadership. We're not at the decision-making table ensuring that this project is done in a sustainable way. We're not ensuring that these leases take tribal cultural practices and traditional cultural landscapes into mind. And so we ask ourselves, how as a tribal government can we go along with this knowing our history and having seen this play work out time and time again, knowing it's not being done differently? How can we do it? I think, Chris, to me, what I'm seeing now is a time machine being laid out, right? We're going back to the 1900s again. We're starting this all over again. We put a new label on it and we're moving forward. And I'll tell you, we're not going to sit back and do nothing. And people like Annelia, the Climate Justice Coalition, we're not going to be silent on it. I think the stake for the future is even higher now. We need to make real changes to how we live on this planet if we want to continue to live on this planet.
Good. Well, thank you. I think that explains it well. Hey, Annelia, can you talk a little bit about the food sovereignty program and the influx of salmon that is at the basis of the food sovereignty program? But what are you doing? What's going on?
Well, yeah, it's a fairly new program. We've just been up and running through grants and fundings for the last 3 years. And so we're really brand new and figuring out what exactly we're doing and how we're going to build, but it's a very exciting time. It's we have this concept about these food villages. And so again, thinking on these smaller scales, how do we feed and care for people with this village mentality? How do we take care of the people who are immediately around us? And how do we take care of that land immediately around us? So again, it's connecting ourselves and our people back to the land, and how our relationship with it, our relationship with our food, is about how do we learn how to tend those food resources again, our acorns, our fish, that's part of it. And how do we supplement our traditional foods with grown foods like small farms, or other types of livestock or food that we can do in a sustainable way on the river. This river was not meant to sustain agriculture. We're not an agricultural people, but we do have to supplement our diets and we do have to feed people. So learning how do we do that in a sustainable way. And so that's what kind of, and we're also helping, like, it's really exciting. There's so much to do, so much to learn, studying our traditional foods, from our Indian potatoes to our acorns, to again, our salmon, like understanding these foods and our relationship with them. And we get to participate in the cultural burning. And so it's very exciting, and it's really like a hot topic along the river. So the Karuks have a food sovereignty program. In the upper basin, the Klamaths, the Modocs, they're working with food. And I see this future of having these trade routes reopened, and again, like taking care of our people on this river with this village mentality.
Good. Now, in your bio, Annelia, you talked about a land back campaign too that the Karuks are up to now. Can you share a little bit? Not a whole bunch, but just what's
I don't know. I would say it's pretty grassroots. I'm just gonna speak on that, on the grassroots piece of it, like putting a lot of pressure on settlers in our homelands to allow us access to our gathering places. To, there was a big boom and bust marijuana industry here on the river. And so there's a lot of lands that were destroyed and used and abused. And so we want those lands back. We want all of those grow places that are no longer serving their money needs to be given back. We want that land back. We also want, there's this place up on the Salmon River called Black Bear. It was like this portal that was opened up in the 60s or whenever it was, this hippie era, when they said free land, free love. And it brought a lot of settlers in. So closing down these portals that are bringing people in to settle our lands. And that's kind of what we want. That's our idea of land back here. But it's also, again, like land back is so much more than just literally getting land back. It's taking care of the land. So we want settlers, if they're going to have our land and take it, that they need to take care of it, and they need to be responsible for it also.
Frankie, is there a perfect fish hatchery that we can develop and maneuver, particularly?
Yeah, there absolutely is perfect fish hatcheries. They're called ecosystems, and we created them millennia ago. We know how to build them. We do a really good job of creating them. It starts with good land management. It includes cultural burning. It includes the connection of the land management with the water management. I think there are useful hatcheries that can produce some potential positive impacts, but there are no good long-term hatcheries. I don't believe that. I think the best hatchery you can create, and I say create, and I want to make sure that we're clear with creating, because there's this misconception. I think Annelia's hitting on it a little bit, that happened, that we had to change the mindset that this continent, and we use the word agriculture and we think of row crops and all of that, but the understanding of agriculture from a traditional mindset is the ecosystem around us, right? This holistic management of your ecosystem, of your oaks, of your prairies. That was our agriculture, and it was at a scale so large you couldn't see it because it was everywhere, right? Everywhere you looked was traditional agriculture, because we were developing these ecosystems to create food sources everywhere. I will say one of the things that's exciting coming post dam removal is the return of 3,000 acres to the Shasta Indian Nation, lands that were formerly under the reservoir, where they're now able to come back to. Annelia talked about closing portals, which we need to do, but we also need to continue to open paths for our traditional people to come home. And I think that's another thing that Karuk and Annelia is working on, is to ensure that we have paths for our people to come home and live. It's really exciting to talk with the Shasta Indian Nation about this return of their land, their sacred sites, and their ability for the people to move home again, to resettle these areas that they lived in since time immemorial, just like the salmon are doing now. I think it's really, really exciting to see what's happening there. And I'll say that as far as hatcheries are concerned, we do a lot of good work to restore our in-stream hatcheries, to restore our landscapes, And I think that's the best thing that you can do. Our species don't live singular lives. I think that's the core issue with hatcheries is you separate species into their own bubble. And every single time you see us separating single species out, we fail because we don't understand the simple concept that we are here together and it's all connected.
Good. Well, I think our bell has rung, and we are reaching the end of the program. And I think let's do a few minutes of finish up. You know, it's too short a time to talk about this subject, granted. But Annelia, do you have any closing comments?
I just hope that we have set an example here on the Klamath of how we can revive and restore and bounce back from colonization and how we can move forward. Yeah, we don't want to go backwards, but we have to move forward. And how do we live our lives again in a good way? And so I hope to see more dams coming down. I hope to see the dams on the Snake River. I want to see the Hoover Dam come down. I want to see all these dams come down because we see how our rivers thrive after dam removal. And that is so important. If we care about life and existence on this earth, we need to take care of our water. And so, I mean, that's number one, right? That's number one. And we shouldn't have to say water is life because that is what it is. And so I hope that all peoples, you know, really consider, you know, the pathways to you know, healing our watersheds.
On dam, the eel is
Yes,
out.
the eel, yeah, all
Frank,
of them.
Frankie, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Chris. I just got back from a trip to Round Valley and Covelo in the Potter Valley project. I think we're going to see a free flowing Eel River quicker than we think. You know, I really appreciate this time to come and talk about the Klamath Dam removal, what it means to us as a people. And I think the lessons learned from this 20-year struggle really want to emphasize, you know, the power that our communities hold, that what we can accomplish when we come together is incredible. Trying to push away these systemic racist policies around land management and water management, and how amazing you can really affect future generations when you allow and you get out of the way of tribes and tribal ecological knowledge and the principles that we know and understand of how to live here in this place that we now call Earth. It's absolutely critical. And I love to see and hear these stories coming from other areas about the good work that is happening, you know, spaces like this where we get to share what we've learned here on the Klamath and see what else is possible. You know, the ideals of hope that what we have in our community that we see in other communities is absolutely amazing. And, you know, it feels like rays of sunshine most days you wake up and you see these amazing things happening in your basin, amazing things happening in Indian country. It feels really, really good.
Well, the river is running free, and all the way from the headwaters to the lips. You know, it's unobstructed. It's not. It's something that the work that you two have logged in with many other people have brought some significant change to the Klamath River, and I think that in itself sends a message to the world that we can do it. So can you. And I think the depletion, the decline of the fish population, Chinook population was listed as an endangered species. So is the lamprey eel. You know, it's close to the point of no coming back. Now we have hope that things will come back again. And again, we ask you to tune in next week. Next week we're talking about sacred sites and sacred places. And we approach the river is sacred here to everybody. The fish is sacred, but also, you know, the places on the river that now we can access is critical. and I think sacred places and sacred lands is a good topic to have. That's on November 7th, so stay tuned.